So today we'll talk about properties of numbers. Properties of numbers. Okay, these are notes from someone from last year, and I just want to show you about how much room it's going to take up. Okay, so that's how much room. So our first word is commutative. That is our first property, commutative, and we have commutative addition and multiplication. So let me zoom in on that so you can see that. C-O-M-M-U-T-A-T-I-V-E. Commutative. Commutative. Commutative means to change order. This triangle right here, we use it a lot in science, and it means to change. Change. So change order. So now let's give examples of adding and multiplying using commutative property. So here's two examples we have. 2 plus 3 and A plus B. So changing order, in order for it to be the same, I can simply change the order to 3 plus 2. Right? 2 plus 3 is the same as 3 plus 2. It'll come out the same answer. I just changed the order. Same thing with A plus B. That's the same as B plus A. I'll get the same result. They are equal. I'm changing the order. Okay, now let's try multiplying. So 2 times 3, that's the same thing as 3 times 2. I'm changing the order, but this is 6 and that is 6. They're equal, but I just changed the order. A times B, that will be the same as B times A. I just changed the order. So remember, commutative means to change order. Next, we have the associative property. So think of associate. Try not to think of the first 3 letters. And it basically means to change the grouping. Change the grouping. So now let's give an example for adding. If you notice, the order is the same. 2, 3, 7, 2, 3, 7. And if you add it up, this would be 5 and 7 is 12. 5 and 7 is 12. It's 12 on both sides. Now, if I have parentheses here, that's 5 plus 7. But did you know if I move the parentheses, in other words, I change what's inside of it, there's now different numbers. This would be 10 plus 2 is 12. So see, it doesn't matter. The order's the same, but I changed the grouping. I changed the grouping. So before we use numbers, now we use variables. A plus B plus C is the same thing as A plus B plus C. Now if I have the grouping like this, it will still be, notice the order is the same, A, B, C, A, B, C. But I can change what's inside the parentheses and still get the same answer. It will still be the same. It's like if A is 2, B is 3, and C is 7, I'm still going to get the same answer. The left side is equal to the right side. Let's try the same thing with multiplying, an example there. This time we'll just use numbers. So if I have 2 times 7 times 3 is equal to 2 times 7 times 3. Notice the order did not change at all. It's the same order. That's not commutative. However, if I put parentheses in here, this, by the way, this side right here, this is 7 times 3 is 21 times 2 is 42. 42 is this side. 14 times 3 is 42. And if I move the parentheses to like this, see now I have something different inside the group. Here I have 2 and 7. Now I have 7 and 3. It's still the same. I get the same answer. I still get 42. 21 times 2 is 42. I still get the same. So again, commutative, I change the order. I get the same. Associative, I change the grouping, but I get the same. It's the same answer. And the last one that property we'll deal with today is called identity. And on identity, we just keep the original. Keep the original. So what we'll do is we'll show examples for adding and multiplying. So on the addition part, remember, we're keeping the original. Keeping the original. So if I start off with 4, I have to add something so that it stays a 4. And what would that be? 0. And if I have an A and I want to keep it an A, what could I add so that it still stays an A? 0. So basically, if you add a 0, that's the identity property. You keep the original. You keep what you started with. You start with a 4, you end up with a 4. You start with an A, you end up with an A. So we add 0. That's the identity of addition. Now let's look at multiplying. So we have 4 times something, it gives us 4. 1. A times something gives us A. 1. So basically, if you multiply by 1, you'll end up what you started with. You're keeping the original. You end up what you started with. So, commutative means to change the order. Associative means change the grouping. Identity means you keep the original, whatever you started with. So now let's go ahead and let's start using these properties. So we'll write a problem, and then I'll tell you how to think, how you should be thinking. So 6 plus 7 plus 14. So a quick way of doing this is to use the commutative property, change the order so that it would look like 6 plus 14 plus 7. See that? I'm changing the order. 6, 7, 14. 6, 14, 7. That's a commutative property. And you want to be thinking 6 and 14. Because you know 6 and 14 is how much? Plus 7 is 27. So it's easier to think this way. Here's our next problem. 6 times 5 times 3. Put a parentheses on the 5 times 3. So I have 6 times 5 times 3. Here's another way of thinking about it, is instead of having the parentheses around the 5 times 3, which would be 15 times 6, you can put it around 6 times 5. Because that's 30. 30 times 3. 30, 30, 30. That is 90. And what property is it that I change the grouping? That's the associative. Next one, 25 times 8 times 4. Now I'm going to rewrite this. Okay, is this associative or is this commutative I just did? Let's see, 25, 8, 4, 25, 4, 8. I changed the order. That would be commutative. So if I change the order, now look at this, 25 times 4, that's 100. 4 quarters is 100. 100 times 8. 100 times 8 is 800. Here's our last one, 5 plus 23 plus 45. So what I'm going to do is put 5, and I'm going to move this, put this number in there. Plus 45. 5 plus 45 plus 23. Yeah, the order did change, but so did the grouping. The grouping changed. Actually, this is both properties. I changed, the order is different, and the grouping is different. This is both properties. Well, 5 and 45, that makes 50, and 50 and 23. Commutative means change order, associative change grouping, identity means keep the original.